This is the Flabbergasted Podcast, where we just can't believe you haven't seen it. Every episode, we discuss a movie that one of us has seen and the other hasn't. Follow us on Instagram at FlabberPod and subscribe in your podcast app of choice. I'm your host, Rogge. Let's get to it. Hello and welcome to tonight's episode of Flabbergasted, the movie podcast. We just can't believe that you haven't seen it. I am your host for today. My name is Rogge. I'm a high school Spanish teacher at Wawasee High School in Syracuse, Indiana. I am joined today by Jess, who has a job that I don't understand. Jess, how are you?
Good. How are you?
I'm good. You're in HR somewhere.
Yeah.
Nice.
It's so nice because you did this whole intro, and last week when we were recording, I was like, hey, this is the movie we're talking about. Here we go.
It's not a commentary on the fact that we did that. It's just that I like to do random things to mix it up in the beginning of each episode.
That makes me feel a little better.
This week, speaking of having jobs, we are discussing the 2019 Bong Joon-ho film, Parasite.
Nice segue.
Thank you. It is surprisingly relevant. IMDb says that this film is about greed and class discrimination threaten the newly formed symbiotic relationship between the Wellesley Park family and the destitute Kim clan, which I think sums things up nicely. I first saw Parasite in 2019 in the lead up to its Oscar nomination and victory for Best Picture. I had not seen it again since then until this last week. Jess, why had you never seen Parasite?
There's a very simple answer to this.
Mm-hmm.
Jeremy
it's not going to make you look great, is it?
Is not a fan of movies with subtitles.
Mm-hmm. He's an uncultured swine. We can just say it for what it is.
He's okay with a few subtitles, but when the whole movie is in it, it's not. I don't actually even know that he's not a fan of it. I just know that in our several years of being together, 13 years of being together, this would be the first movie that we've watched together that was completely subtitled.
Wow. It's just too much work.
Not to, like, the difference between us listening to it in English and me reading the subtitles along with the English version is not included in this distinction.
Right. Which we do for every movie we watch, essentially.
Yes.
And this isn't, to be clear to listeners, a result of thinking people in other countries don't have stories to tell or being xenophobic in any way. It's a lot of work to read the words on the screen.
It is. And
takes you out of the performance, maybe.
Sometimes you have to, you just have to really be paying attention. And I'll be honest, I'm not super, I really love to watch movies, but I do tend to drift if I'm not really in it.
Yeah.
And so having to really focus does take an energy that I don't always bring to watching movies. Now, I would say that this is because I have to focus in a lot of other areas of my life. So when I watch a movie, I just want to watch the movie and not have to think a lot about it, which is very contradictory to me watching a movie and being like, oh my gosh, that was so inspiring and made me think of these 25 different things, which definitely happens. So
it's kind of the point of the podcast.
Yeah. So I know that that's kind of like me talking out of both sides of my mouth, but it is what it is.
Well, it's not necessarily, I think people are allowed to hold contradictions simultaneously. It's not fair necessarily, but it does feel like more work. I think is kind of if you were to distill the argument from your guys' side, you're like, we're not saying we're right about it. This is just how it is to us kind of thing.
Yeah. And I'm also not saying that I wouldn't watch more movies with subtitles solely in other languages, but it just isn't. I generally do most of my movie watching with my family. And so there are trade-offs for that.
Right. You're cultured. It's them that aren't.
Oh, yeah, exactly.
Absolutely. Well, this is a film that I really love. And it's if we take out Muppet Christmas Carol, it's probably the happiest I would be to wax poetic on the politics of a film or socioeconomic implications of a film. I don't know that we have to go in that direction entirely.
Even with Fiddler?
I guess that's true. Fiddler would be up there too. Fiddler had a bunch of big messages, though. Like, I mean, that was a piece of Fiddler, but then also like racism and religion and family dynamics, like, were also big pieces, I think. Whereas this movie, I think, is somewhat about family dynamics, but is mostly about economic dynamics.
Yeah.
I think. So, yeah. As far as the movies we've done that I have done that have that really punch in that direction, it hits home for me with that. So do you have anything else before we like get into the notes of the film that you want to hit on?
I don't understand why there's bars over the eyes in the poster.
I also don't know why.
Okay.
I would guess it's just something to do with redaction being redacted. I mean, based on like how the film ends, like the scenarios that happen at the end. Or it could be a commentary on them not mattering, not even being people in the eyes of their employers, something like that.
Except the Park family had them too.
Oh, that's true.
Okay. It's not a real big sticking point. I just didn't get it, and I wondered if you did.
I'm Googling it while we talk about this. Shows the connotative meaning of the difference between the two classes of families. It doesn't explain it. So the movie starts in media res. It doesn't start with like an explanation like, hi, I'm Mr. Parasite. Here's what this is about. We start with a family who is realizing that they no longer have access to free Wi-Fi from the coffee shop down the street and is clearly scrambling to figure out how their phones are going to connect so that they can get a WhatsApp message about folding pizza boxes.
Yeah.
And I think that this is an awesome representation of what this movie is going to be about. Because for me, my biggest note on the whole film is it's very show, don't tell. There's they never look at a bank statement. They never say like, man, we need the money. Like, they just make it obvious in these subtle ways that I think are really good. And we spend 5 minutes on this family that is very crafty and is very problem solving. They're not dumb. They are just poor. And they work together so cohesively in a way that I think is beautiful.
I agree that they work together. And that was one of my notes, is that they are very like, they are who they are with each other. They're very real with each other, and they know each other. Like, they know who they are.
Absolutely. Yeah, they don't shy away from being like, this is the situation and we're just going to do what we need to do about it, kind of thing.
They also are okay to kind of disagree with each other.
Yeah.
But they're not attacking each other in kind of ways or arguing so dramatically that you think that you always think of them as a family. You don't ever think of them as a broken family.
Oh, yeah. They bicker, as any normal family dynamic would. But when they need to be working on something as a team, they do so really cohesively, I think.
More than a lot of families that I've seen in action.
Yeah. Yeah. Early on, they get a job. Like, I guess the whole family gets a job folding pizza boxes, and they're trying to like do it as fast as they can and stuff. And
I've seen that video.
Oh, where it's like that they watch on YouTube?
Yeah. Or a video that's very similar. Maybe it wasn't that exact video, but yeah.
While they're doing that, an exterminator comes by and is just blowing like pest extermination stuff along the streets. Did you notice that at the time? Do you think it's like a metaphor for something, or was it just like another thing that happens in the poverty-riddled streets of Seoul or whatever city this is?
I did not connect it to anything metaphorically, and I'm pretty sure it was Seoul. Yeah, I didn't. I was just like, "What are you doing?" And then I did write down like, "Ooh, that's all over the boxes."
Yeah,
people are going to be eating.
Yep, and they just keep folding them during it.
The rest of the family is like coughing and like, and the dad's folding that box.
He's a workhorse. He's no questions asked. He's putting his head down. He's doing what he's got to do the whole film. So did you know kind of what the gist of this movie was about before you watched it? Or did you have no idea?
I think I read the synopsis a while ago or something, and but I didn't know what I was going to be watching.
So in the scene where the pizza company comes, picks up the boxes, and they're like, some of these are bad and we're not going to pay you the full amount for them, which is fair. The brother and sister, who are in my notes as brother and sister for the entire time, they just start badgering that pizza boss lady about getting a job
together,
just double teaming from different angles, but trying not to be like overbearing about it, but just like, oh yeah, did you think about this? Oh, well, that's a really good point. What about, and they're just really working together. And for me, having already seen it, I was like, this is foreshadowing. Like this is the set of skills that these two have.
It is for sure. I was just thinking, it kind of reminds me of like, I don't know, one of the little cartoons, but I can't remember if it's the right one, but it sort of reminds me of the little cartoon guys from Hercules, except like a much more sophisticated version of them, like Pain whispering in ears. Yeah.
I could almost have you seen Bob's Burgers? Like Gene and Louise just coming from both sides, kind of the same thing. So now afterwards, you're like, okay, this is where they started it. This is definitely some foreshadowing.
I also just really want to say it was very intuitive. We didn't hear them talking about this, the brother and sister.
Right.
So they were very intuitively in sync with each other and what they wanted to say and how they were going to say it to build off of each other and not stray from what their end game was.
Yeah. They've worked together on stuff in the past, clearly. And you wonder, did they talk about, okay, hey, when she comes to pick these up, we're going to talk to her about the job? Or is it just that they talk about how much they need jobs, how much money they need so often that they both knew to jump into action once they saw an opening? You know, it could be either one. Both are realistic, I think. So then the plot really lifts off here when Min, their friend, I think his name is Min, M-I-N, he shows up, who he has like been to university. He like kind of made it out of their sort of neighborhood in a way that they've been unable to. And he brings them a big rock, like a decorative stone, and talks to the brother about, hey, I've been doing tutoring. I think I'm going to recommend you and you'll probably get it because I'm recommending you. It's a posh family, you know, it'll be fine. Easy money for you. As long as you don't sleep with the 16-year-old you're supposed to be tutoring, it'll be fine. Bad news about whether or not that's going to ring true.
Because he was basically...
Yeah, he was like, I'm going to ask her out when she graduates.
I mean, and that's what he told his buddy, but that doesn't mean they weren't...
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I think it's never explicitly stated, but I think it's implied.
Yeah. I would take that bet.
And he gets them going down the path towards working for this family. Have you ever lived in a big city like what's being depicted?
No.
In this movie? Okay. I didn't know if you had any thoughts about the class structure in this depiction of urban Korea versus what we see here in the United States.
Something, I don't know that this is specifically related, well, to the class structure, but I have two things about what I'm seeing visually.
Yes,
their place is so tight, and I don't mean small necessarily. I just mean everything is tight, and the toilet's like up on the platform, and all I'm thinking about is how you have to be a really able-bodied individual to navigate that city.
Yeah.
And those things.
The amount of walking that you're doing just to get to the subway.
Many stairs.
Yeah.
That I saw in this movie. And I literally noted so many stairs.
Mm-hmm. Because when you're in that densely packed of an urban environment, you've got to be expanded vertically.
Yep.
I mean, there's nowhere else to go. You're going up or down.
Yeah.
I talked to someone this week. I told them we were doing this movie, and they said, oh, you're going to talk about that toilet. Like, why is there a toilet up there on the shelf? Is that supposed to symbolize something? And I was like, I think it's actually just a plumbing efficiency thing, because you have to have it up above the sewage line.
Yeah.
Because at our old house, I looked into putting a half bath in the basement, but you got to make sure that's above the water line and all that stuff. So
that's exactly what I assumed as well, because we have some friends that remodeled their basement bathroom and they had to put it up on like a little.
Yeah. You can get like pumps to put into your toilet that will shoot everything up, but that's just introducing another step of something that will eventually fail, some kind of mechanical thing. So I think that's interesting. Also, I mean, there's a lot of verticality, and I think once we get to the Park family home, you see a lot of difference in green space, right? The biggest luxury that we see at that home is this big yard.
Yeah.
You do not see grass in a single patch anywhere else in the city, but they've got ivy, trees, shrubs, privacy.
And you can tell that it's
green yard.
Appreciated or revered or whatever you want to call it, because they have that huge window that looks out on it.
Mm-hmm. People are always spending time out there. They're just sitting out there to read or do lessons. Yeah, because it's so valuable. Yeah. I'm going to skip to Brother's interview with Madame, Madam, right, of the house.
Yes.
And did you get the vibe early on that the mom had the hots for the old tutor as well? She was like, he was a really great tutor. So like, if you're not as great as him, then like, there's not even going to be a point in like continuing with this. Yeah. I was just like, okay, Min.
Like, putting it plainly, I thought he was getting some from the mom and the daughter.
I thought so too.
And she was implying like, this is part of the job.
I don't know if it was like you're gonna have to step in and fill this role as well, but more just like, that's a big shoes to fill, buddy, kind of thing.
Then as the movie went on, I was like, oh, maybe
that doesn't play out.
No, like not at all. I wasn't getting those vibes after that interview. So I don't know if that was a choice to not go that route or to make it feel like that in the first place, or if this is just honestly because of the way I perceived it, not being from that culture.
Yeah, it could just be us in the American context, like reading into sexual innuendo between, a 20 to 22-year-old guy, and this mom couldn't have been more than mid-30s, like at the oldest, right? I mean, she didn't. I guess I'm not that familiar with like aging patterns and stuff, but she didn't look old to me. So
no, she did not.
So maybe we're just kind of assuming it.
Well, and you would think she had a sophomore. So sophomores are what, like 16-ish?
Mm-hmm.
So
she's got to be like at least 34.
Ish,
right?
Maybe, yeah.
Yeah. I was impressed with how nicely the brother and sister cleaned up. When they went in for their interviews,
yes,
you could not, there was no like, oh, okay, these are obviously poor people who are out of their element. It was not that way at all.
I really appreciated that he's getting ready to ring the bell and she's like, wait. And then she does the little song kind of thing.
Yeah.
And then she hits it. And I'm like, I really loved the way like she had a story. They're just regrouping together. Like they're really prepping for this, which I know you're like, well, they're lying. But I mean, they're doing a good job of it.
They're putting in the work. Yeah.
I guess my point is they're not lazy.
100%.
Because they're doing the work.
100%. Well, the thing is, it's interesting because he really is, at least at the beginning, he really is tutoring her in English and has the skills to do so.
Yeah.
Like he gets that job other than like saying that he's at university, even though he really wasn't. Like he gets that job on pretty legitimate basis and does that job. And they start stacking the lies after that.
Yeah.
When did you realize that was like the direction that we were heading?
As soon as she did the thing with the underwear, I'm like, okay, what's this? And then we hear her talking and she's like, I set a trap.
Yeah.
And also I was like, this is really soon. Like,
I know.
You guys are moving super quickly.
They do not waste any time. We don't get any more scenes like a week has passed, anything like that.
Maybe one lesson that the brother has, maybe two, and then he's recommending his sister. Then she has literally on her first lesson, she gets a ride home from the chauffeur, and then that happens like within the next day or two or whatever.
And every time the madam just tells them, oh, hey, we're going to have to fire our driver because of this. They don't go like, oh, interesting. And then come back a couple days later and say, hey, I was thinking about it and I had a guy to recommend. They always immediately have a name.
Yes. And I don't know if that was like smart. I mean, obviously it worked, but I also feel like it was so risky.
Yeah.
And this movie gave me some anxiety watching it.
Well, and I think it's trying to. I mean, especially at certain points. But my guess is that they used the strategies they did because Min told them from the very beginning, hey, the mom, what does he call her? She's a little
young and simple.
Yeah. Like almost naive or like easily duped, something like that.
I definitely wrote down, I feel like I'm watching a spy movie.
Yeah, that's true. It is. Mm-hmm. I mean, they're kind of doing a reversed heist. I think that's one of my actually early notes where they're moving to the next stage already. They've been, because they say, oh, we're moving to the next stage already because she saw an opportunity so quickly, like you said, with the underwear and stuff. They've been planning it. They're heisting how to permanently move into the lives of a family. They're not going in stealing something. They're heisting their way in.
Yeah.
To stay, which is cool. So here's a question. These deception skills that they're utilizing, I mean, we're talking forging documents, acting, voices, all that kind of stuff. Are these unique gifts that these people happened to possess? Or are we supposed to kind of feel like these are survival techniques that they had to develop over the last few years just to scrape by given their financial standing?
I'm inclined to think that it is something that is an innate talent that they've developed because of survival. So like maybe they had like
there was a seed.
Yeah, there was. Yes, exactly. Mm-hmm. They felt like they maybe had to do it at some point. They felt like they could. And then because they were forced to develop these skills, they just did.
Yeah.
I do think it is.
That goes along.
Survival mechanism is definitely a huge piece of it.
Yeah, I mean, you got to do what you got to do. Like they've got to try to parent. They got to try to get their phones turned on so they can get texts. You know, they can get calls from employers, that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
There's early on, I mean, again, back to the deception stuff. Sister is she's like negging the mom a little bit about like, well, my rate's going to be really high. I don't know. Not every kid is a genius. She's like making up all this stuff about his drawings and things like that. She's not just fawning over her begging for a job. She's like, I'm really busy. And the mom's like, oh, we can pay anything. Like it's well done, I think.
I agree because it is a definitely different feel from her brother who was like wanting the job, was recommended for the job, and he was good for it. And then she comes in. I love too her power moves where she's like, I'll speak to the madam alone.
Yeah.
And then nobody interrupts. And even later on when her mom gets the gig, she's like, do not come in during lessons.
When no one else is even there to see it. I mean, the kid is.
Right.
And so maybe you just want to keep up the facade in front of the kid. I noticed that for sure. It's good. They've got like different personalities that they're putting out there. Because if they were all the exact same, like playing the same notes, then the family might have caught on earlier.
Yeah.
Did you notice that the son, like 4 different times, says, this is so metaphorical? That's something that he, like when he gets the rock, I think when he looks at the art the first time before he even suggests her, like there's just several different times where he goes, this is so metaphorical. And the first time you're like, wow, like this is a bright kid. And then you're like, oh, that's just a phrase that he knows is something that you say to sound smart. And so he keeps like saying it. I thought that was really funny. All my notes are just about the same stuff, which is like this family is killing it in this first act. The first act is them heisting their way in, right?
Oh my gosh, this movie was so long.
You did it drag for you? You felt like it was long?
Drag, but I think it's once I got to the point where they're drinking after the birthday party, right? Like up to that point, I'm like, okay, this is happening. I didn't realize there was this whole other thing that was going to happen. Yeah. So I'm like, where else are we going with this? And we still have an hour left. Like
you had no idea. You were so unprepared.
So that's what I mean when I say it was so long. But go ahead. In the first act,
it goes from spot to spot for sure. Yeah, it's just about. I mean, they're just playing the family like a fiddle. Where she talks about the long-standing. Oh, I've known this guy for years. I called him uncle. It's such a long-standing relationship. Because she knew she'd already read in this madam that she's going to want someone that comes personally recommended. It's very upper class, like handpicked. Oh, like we don't like our artisan. You know, we don't want to just call a service. Like we want to know. Yeah, I think it's almost difficult to put into words that she just unlocked. Like, okay, this is what she's going to want. I'm going to plant the seeds right now for it.
Yeah, and they were very specific, and I love when they bring in the mom and they're going over the whole tuberculosis conversation.
Yeah.
And like they even have what she's going to say
word for word.
Yeah. Because she's so predictable to them.
Yeah.
And
they are perceptive, right?
Yes,
they know they
yes.
they took the time to get to know her and how she was going to react, what she was going to say.
And I love when the son's like, Dad, your energy's up here and I need you to bring it like down here. Right.
Yeah. You're not delivering a Shakespearean monologue where you need to really, emote.
And he took the note and did it.
Right. It's so good.
Because
he knows his kids are smart and they're on a team together.
Yes, they recognize they're on a team. And I noticed that carry out through the entire movie so much that I really liked it.
Okay, I have a 1-word note here. Peaches.
Yeah, that was crazy.
It was pretty good.
I'm like,
the what little vial?
Are we doing? That was what I was like, what is happening here? Yeah, it was amazing.
So right around this point, do you feel bad for the driver and housekeeper that they're pushing out? Or are you just rooting for the family so much that you're like, yeah, we got another one in there?
I was not invested in the driver.
Right.
I did feel a little bit bad about the housekeeper because I'm like, okay, this could be like a deathly allergy.
Oh, right.
And you're just screwing with that.
So we don't feel bad about her losing her job, but you're like, this is a real medical condition you're exploiting.
Well, I mean, I do feel a little bad about her losing the job because I feel like at her status as the housekeeper, she lived there.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like she was more a part of the family than the driver.
Yeah.
Right. So I feel like that was like really more, I don't know, just more a part of the family. That was weird to me. But at the same time, I'm also like, they're going to get rid of her. So it doesn't matter if I like her or not.
So here's my question. Does she live there?
Well, later on, when they're doing the birthday and they come back, he tells the one housekeeper to stay in her room.
But we see scenes for sure of the mom from the Park family or Kim family being at home in that underground apartment, like after she's gotten the job. There's a good scene where they're sitting there and they're like, man, we did it. Like, we've got these jobs. How much money is coming in total?
Live there, but she can stay there overnight as the job requires.
Nights or something. Yeah. Maybe was just a weekend. Okay. I wasn't 100% sure on that. The first time I felt a little bad. Like I said, I've seen this once and I remembered the general beats, but not like piece by piece. I felt a little bit bad. We got a completely silent scene of the son who is the artist kid who's obsessed with the Native Americans, who's watching out into the garden as mom is firing housekeeper. Okay,
that's what I wanted to talk about.
Yeah.
She fires the chauffeur. Don't say anything about him having sex in the car. We don't, that's really shady. We don't want to say, we don't want to just make up an excuse.
Mm-hmm.
And she fires the housekeeper by just making up some excuse. And I'm like, if they could handle confrontation, they wouldn't be in the place that they're at by the end of this movie. These would be completely different stories.
Oh, interesting. If they'd actually pushed them about doing this, you think people would have stood up for themselves more?
I think there at least would have been a conversation about it.
So it's just another example of the Kim family being like, this is how they're going to do it. They're just going to try to come up with some reason. And that's why we're going to get away with it, is because they're going to be too polite about it.
Yeah. I mean, even if you had just said, listen, it's come to my attention that you have a disease. And she's like, wait, what are you talking about?
Yeah.
And then there's a conversation there. Now, whether she believes her or not, I don't know. But at least that seed is planted in Mrs. Park's brain.
Yeah.
And so now she's a little suspicious, maybe.
Oh, she was so suspicious. So we're pushing towards the second. And so we already kind of talked about it. I was going to ask, when are you picking up what the next act is going to be, or like where things are building to? So for a while, you're just like, okay, this is a movie about how a poor family can heist their way into the lives of a rich family. And then maybe they'll find out and confront them. And is that where you kind of thought this was going? Yeah. And they never do.
They never find out.
They literally never find out.
Yeah.
Okay. So again, the same thing with the new housekeeper. They push that aggressively immediately. Dad gives them that business card and stuff. They don't give any downtime for them to think of a different plan, which maybe is smart. You got the fish on the hook.
Maybe. You were getting ready to say the first time you watched it, you started feeling bad About the housekeeper?
Just in that silent scene. I mean, I didn't feel bad in general, but just when you see the kid like looking out the window and the mom kind of is looking down, not making eye contact with her. So yeah, I think he does a good job of giving us that silent. And then you see her with her suitcase just kind of walking down the street. And then once you know that her husband is also living in the basement of that house,
spoiler,
that sort of gives you a second. Yeah, I mean, we're about to get there.
I know. Yeah. You're like, oh my gosh. I was like, oh my gosh.
So I wanted to ask, what do you think about the relationships in the Park family? I noticed during this watch through that I think especially the dad and the son, he legitimately likes that kid.
Yes.
Like and I think I would expand that to say that both the parents actually love their kids and like want good stuff for them. And don't even want to just totally ignore them.
I would agree with that. I don't know that they really like each other very much.
The kids? Oh, the parents?
The parents.
Yeah, for sure.
I think they like each other, but they're not friends.
You get the recurring like, well, you love her. And he's like, oh, sure, if that's what you want to call it. Like that kind of thing.
They are not a team.
No. Yeah. I mean, they hire a team to team for them. Why would they need to be a team?
Yes. And it's very evident, like, even though the boy is a very little boy, there's still a place on the team for him, but they don't have a team. So
yeah,
he's just a little boy.
He's on a team with his dad doing walkie-talkie stuff. I love the walkie-talkie stuff. It's so fun.
His dad and he and his dad have some of the best, like, interactions with just a dad and a kid. Yeah.
Which is, I read that as a little bit of, okay, we never really see the dad and the daughter interact, but of course, we had a son. Perfect. This is who I'm going to bond to. This is the kid that I'm going to parent, which is kind of a classic patriarchy thing.
And how about the daughter? I hate to say this because I don't want to be that person, but she was super annoying.
Really?
Yes.
I'm surprised that you felt like she had enough scenes and dialogue to reach the level of being super annoying.
Every time she's like, first, when they introduce the sister to be the tutor, she's like, oh, you think she's pretty. You like her, don't you? You want to date her. And I'm like, whoa, girlfriend, cool your jets.
Yeah.
So she jumped right into that, like escalation super high. I'm like, he's been your tutor for what? You
spend time around 16-year-old girls.
2 days?
Like yeah.
And you're in love with him? Okay.
Yeah.
And then
if she's annoying, like success, as are most 16-year-old girls.
I don't know. I don't know if most 16-year-old girls are like that. And I should know this, but I don't know this anymore. But I just felt like she just says it all. She thinks it, she says it. Mm-hmm. Like later on when they're making out, she's like, you were thinking of something else. Mm-hmm. And I'm like, if it bothered you at the time, stop making out with him.
Yeah.
And be like, what's wrong? I think that's what it was. She was just very accusatory about everything instead of asking a question, which is potentially maybe a result of her class and upbringing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, could be.
I don't know.
I assume that to that point in her relationship with the brother, there had never been any conflict. It was just entirely feeding each other fruit and making out and occasionally doing English tutoring.
Yeah.
So this was like their very first fight or conflict of any kind.
Which wasn't even really a conflict. It's like, just ask a question.
Yeah.
But when you notice that her mom and her dad don't ever want to have any kind of confrontation.
Yeah.
I get really annoyed with people and society in general, maybe, and this is, again, maybe I'm looking too far into this, but not all questions are meant to provoke conflict or challenge the person you're asking. Like sometimes a question is just a question.
Yeah.
And
that's why things like tone are important.
I see it so often that people just get super defensive right away. And it's like, chill.
Yeah. I'm just literally trying to find out that information.
Yeah.
So like I mentioned earlier, there's a little scene where we get the family back at their own apartment, enjoying their success. You're noticing they're always eating food when we have those back there's the pizza or them going through a buffet or whatever. And they're sitting and they're eating steak or something. And we get that's the second time we see the peen drunk.
Yeah, which is ridiculous. Like, what are you doing?
What is there some sort of artistic significance that I'm not understanding with this guy? Why does he keep coming back?
Just the opportunity for them to go call him out. I don't know what the point is.
Because the first time his buddy Min yelled at him, "Hey, what are you doing? Get your life together." And then he, I think, echoes. I think he says the same thing, "Get a grip," or something like that. Might have been the phrase that they both used. And he's like splashing water on him and all that stuff. I just wasn't sure what the significance of that was. So the madam puts on jeans and they're going to go camping and he's wearing a flannel and they're going to pitch a tent and stuff. And so then our Kim family is all, of course, hanging out at the house. Did you start getting nervous at that point?
Yes.
That something was going to happen?
Yes.
My thing was they drank so much of their brown liquor. They are just pouring or just drinking from the bottle, which, I mean, like, I understand that they're there to use their stuff. I get that part. But you're going to get caught.
Yes. And this is such a mess. This is not, I've seen way too many movies for me to be okay with this. Like, you have created this mess, one that cannot be cleaned up quickly.
That part doesn't end up biting them. But I'm like, they're not being careful at that point. They're so confident the family's gone for the weekend.
It doesn't end up biting them because the Park family are so oblivious, not because they're that great at hiding it.
Yeah, true. I just was like, you cannot be, I mean, getting drunk, whatever, but like they're going to notice if this is really nice alcohol. The dad is going to notice.
Yeah.
What are you doing?
Where did all my alcohol go?
Yeah. I love the line when they're sitting there and talking about, this beautiful house and, someday what if you marry the daughter and all that kind of stuff. And the dad is talking about just money, about them living there. He says it all gets ironed out. The creases all ironed out. Money is an iron.
I literally wrote that down because I think it was an amazing line. Such
a cool line. And whoever did the translating here, like, I'm sure that the line was great in the original Korean, and then to translate that metaphor so perfectly, that's just like, that was sick.
I agree. It's so true.
Yeah. Yeah, it is. So we're to the point of the twist. Old housekeeper shows up.
I did not understand what was wrong with her face. Like, I did not understand why she was beat up.
I think it was because she was trying to push the bookshelf thing and she fell.
I thought before that she was beat up.
Already?
Which I think it's because of the debtors or whatever that she's talking about, maybe.
Oh, maybe. I did not. I was watching during the day on the projector screen. So sometimes it was a little dark and it was hard for me to make that stuff out. Yeah, I didn't notice that. That's interesting.
I will say we're starting to embark on the part of the movie that I felt was very physical and hard to watch.
Not hard to watch as in like poorly made, but just like viscerally, like cringy kind of. Yeah. Well,
for me,
I think that's what the director was going for there. I don't think that this part's supposed to be easy.
They fall, I'm just like, oh, ouch, ouch. Mm-hmm. Like I even said, ouch, and I covered my eyes at least twice.
Mm-hmm. When they go downstairs and everything is so concrete and brutalist and just like hard, Yeah, 100%. They start out with class solidarity and her calling her sis and being like, if we're in this together, we're the poor people, they're the rich people. Let's work something out. Tries to like pay her off every month to let her husband still live down there.
Yeah. Bring food down twice a week. Never mind. Just once.
Yeah.
Once is fine.
Yeah. And that flips so fast.
Well, I was really annoyed with the mom because I thought, you should have a little bit of grace for this person. And instead of that, she's like, I'm going to call the police.
Happy.
I'm going to call the police.
Yeah. And this is part of the poverty mindset, from the books about it that I have read, I guess, to some extent. You know how people get really judgmental, like, oh, you're driving to a trailer park and there's all these nice trucks, or like people spend their tax refund on a big, nice TV. Yep. And it's like, yeah, when you have no nice things and you finally get some money, like the way that the stress impacts your brain, you just want some dopamine. Like, can I please have something nice? So it's very quick for this mom, for them to go from no food, no money, no job, barely scraping by, no phones turned on, to her like, oh no, who are you? I'm the housekeeper of this beautiful home. Like, I'm going to crush you under my foot, right? How quickly do people want to flip on that?
Yeah.
To feel like I'm a half step up from you because I'm, whatever. But did you notice the parallel about what the debt situation was, where he's talking about he had some kind of restaurant, like a breakfast place or a steamed bun place or something like that. And that was why her weird husband. Did you notice he was weird even before he really flipped?
Yeah.
He had his like crazy eyes kind of.
He does, like, they're really big.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I noticed parallels between that husband's debt and the dad's debt, who becomes the driver. Because he's like, oh yeah, I parked valet. I was a driver. I had a chicken place. I had a banh mi place. Like he had several different jobs that they racked up debt. And so I really thought that was going to tug at her heartstrings. He's like, yeah, I went all in on this restaurant and it failed. And my debtors are coming after me. That she's like, that's my exact situation. Right.
Yeah.
Still flipped on him real quick.
Also, I'm like, I feel like whose foot slipped on the stairs?
I feel like brother was the farthest down, right?
That's what I thought. And I'm like, and he screws up later on in the movie.
When he drops the rock?
Yeah.
How do you drop that?
I'm like, why are you so super clumsy?
That's insane.
Which makes me sound super mean, but he was good at all of these other things he did, but he's very clumsy apparently.
Yeah.
That was so annoying. Also, I'm like, why are they all crowded around the stairs? I mean, I know because you're curious and you want to know what's going on.
Yeah.
But the risk at that point is so high. This is where I wrote in my notes, this is making me really anxious.
Yes. Yeah. Was any part of you like, are you really going to call the cops? Because do you really want the cops up in here? If they start asking any questions and all your stories are going to fall apart immediately too.
Yeah.
Was she bluffing? I
don't know. I have no clue what she was going to do. I really thought they needed to. This is when they stop being a team.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the cracks start to show a little bit.
Yeah.
Right. When you're all striving for a common goal, it's one thing. Once you reach that mountaintop, it's hard to stay connected. Disease of me. Right. Yeah. It's why it's hard for sports teams to win a bunch of times in a row because everyone thinks it's all about them. So they get the call. Everyone's upstairs. Crazy housekeeper is doing her Kim Jong-un impression and making them hold their hands in the air, is still filming them. They tackle her and get the phone. So we've got that threat neutralized.
And all I'm thinking about is how many different hands touch that phone and how easy it would be to send that message. So easy.
Could have been so easy. And I mean, they're saying it. He's like, don't accidentally send it, delete it. Don't accidentally send it. And then we get the phone call.
And here's where I thought, okay, now we're going to be a team. The old housekeeper is going to teach you how to cook whatever it is. Everybody else is going to go down in the basement and chill out until you can regroup. That's what I thought was going to happen.
Yeah.
And then it just turns into total chaos and I close my eyes.
Because we've got Ramadan that she's like, I don't know what this is. How do I cook this? Here's my note. I said, honestly, I feel like I could get more done in those 8 minutes than what they got done. But maybe I'm just built different. What's my whole note? Just shove they didn't get a bag to shove the trash into. They just shoved it all in there. No one ran out. No one left.
Right. I really thought everybody would help clean up everything and the housekeeper would the old housekeeper would help the mom make the food. Yeah. But instead of doing any of that, there was no
solidarity at that point between those groups. They tried to
neutralize the guy, throw him down in the basement. And this is where it starts getting super physical, where they're
binding them and dragging them downstairs and stuff.
And the peaches, they did the thing with the peaches again.
Mm-hmm. They peached her hard. Yeah.
Yeah. So, and then that was the final thing that really just was super cringy is she's starting to come back up the stairs and the mom kicks her down the stairs and she lands. And I was sure she was dead.
I know. Yeah. I thought so. I honestly thought so too.
And I was like, at this point, I'm like, I don't know what I'm watching, but I don't like this. I do not.
It's not a horror film, but it's definitely suspense.
Oh, for sure.
Because there's a lot.
And it just made me really uncomfortable in a way of like, that everything just escalated so quickly.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know. I was very uncomfortable.
Because once you're talking about livelihood, you're talking about where someone's living. People's teeth are going to come out and they're going to get protective and they're going to get defensive so quickly.
Yeah.
We grifted our way into this. We need this. They have a lot to lose. It makes sense they'd be defensive.
And I understand that because this is survival.
Yeah.
But it is also survival for the old housekeeper and her husband, which we didn't realize. Yes. We didn't really realize that until now.
No, they are backs against the wall as well, for sure. Yeah. Because they have no other options, really. I think there's also a piece of it where we're so used to watching a sitcom or a kid show where someone's hiding under the couch or hiding under the bed. And has it ever worked once?
No.
It has never worked. And in this case, it works multiple times in a row. They're very successful.
Oh my gosh.
Did you think daughter was gonna find brother under the bed?
Yeah, because the dog is whining right there. And what does he do? He hides his head in his arm.
Yeah.
If I can't see her, she can't see me. And then mom comes up the stairs and Mrs. Park, and in true daughter fashion, I can't believe you didn't ask me. Instead of walking down there and saying, I want some what was it again?
Yeah, Ramdan.
She's like, you didn't ask me, and is getting all upset. You asked dad and the brother, and then you just ate it yourself.
Yeah, which she's not wrong. She didn't ask her.
But if you wanted some, instead of like playing on your phone and walking straight upstairs, you should have said, hey, I want some. I'll be down in a minute.
Well, but the thing is, it's not about her wanting some, because the mom goes, do you want me to have her make more? We have a servant. I can have her make more.
Right.
And she's like, no, I wanted you to ask me.
Yep.
And so that's, I think, a hint to underlying tension between the two women in the house.
Which I also understand, because I do feel like she gets the least amount of interaction.
Yeah.
So I get where she's coming from. It's like, I want you to care about me, and it doesn't seem like you do. Thanks, Mom.
Yeah, I think it's more about that.
But I'm also like, sometimes you just have to like put yourself out there.
Yeah. So we get, during the Ramdam, we get her explaining about the real history with Da Song's past with the ghost.
How?
And we know what this is a reference to.
I don't know how the sister knew that something happened to the kid in first grade.
The sister said it?
She mentions
it. Or was it mom?
During tutoring or during the interview. She's like, something traumatic happened. And the mom's like, oh my gosh. Mrs. Park's like, oh my gosh, yes, something happened. But we don't hear about what it was. But the sister hears about what it was. We get the cut. Yeah. And then we hear about it from the mother to the mother talking about it.
So did you notice that then this was the anniversary? I mean, this is also his birthday. And you start being like, oh, it's going to happen to this kid again.
I'm like, oh my gosh, this is a lot.
Yeah. I love the line where the dad is like, is this tent going to leak? He's out there in a downpour. Is the tent going to leak? And the mom goes, oh, we ordered it from the US. It'll be fine.
Yes. I thought
like
that was
their
crazy.
reverence. And like the times that they slip into English, they throw English phrases at each other occasionally.
Yeah.
Like almost to show like how, elite they are or something. I mean, I guess we do that sometimes with French phrases here in the US. Like it just has a certain je ne sais quoi. Like that makes you sound fancy. Is it kind of the same thing?
I don't know if it translates.
Yeah, it's hard to say.
But yeah, I don't know. I did notice that they did that. And I'm like, why are you doing that? And I couldn't really think of a good reason outside of if he knows English for business and they're trying to teach it to their kids, they're trying to create an atmosphere where they can slide back and forth between the two languages.
But they don't use it like to each other. They use it like when they're talking to the Kim family, from what I noticed. I thought it was a status thing. It was like fancy people, I mean, there's the Francophile stuff from like 200 years ago in the US. It was like, oh, people that are, really have money, all speak French, or study French or whatever.
Because they had the luxury to learn a second language.
Yeah.
I say luxury, but they were able to hire a tutor is what I really mean.
Yes. Yeah. So this may be the line, not the line of the movie for me, but another absolute banger is when you've got dad, brother, and sister all hiding under the couch / table. while the Madam and Mr. Park have weird sex on the couch above them. And they're talking about the driver's smell.
Yes.
And they say people who ride the subway have a special smell, like old radishes or when you're boiling a rag. And he's under there and he's hearing them say this, and all of them know. Mm-hmm. And I was just like, man, crushing. But it's more show don't tell. Because then we get later when he holds his nose when he picks up the car keys.
Yeah. That was ridiculous.
That was ridiculous. That's like maybe the least realistic thing. I mean, his son is having a seizure. Someone has a stabbing wound right in front of him. Yes. And there's a strange man who is actively in a knife fight with one of his house employees. Yeah. And he's completely ignoring that.
Yeah.
It's insane. We get back to the apartment that is partially underground. Did you have in your brain at that point, oh, I bet their apartment's going to be flooded?
No, I didn't even see that at all. Nothing. I mean, they're walking through the rain and I thought, oh, they're getting cold. They're getting tired. Mm-hmm. And I wasn't even thinking about their home. And they walk through and there are neighbors that are asking for their help as they're walking through, which I think is crazy because on one hand, you're like, help us out. We're your neighbors. And on the other hand, you're like, I've got to see my own stuff and check on it.
Right. Yeah. They just had to push. Normally they're the kind of people that probably would have helped, but they had to push through.
Yeah. I don't know how none of their electronics got wet enough to stop working.
Oh, I feel like some of them probably did. But did they have a lot of electronics?
No, I mean, they were on their phones the next day.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, those were in their pockets. And, phones are like semi-water resistant at this point, right?
I thought sewer water was flammable.
Flammable?
Yeah.
I don't know about that. I thought it was just like dangerous and like disease-ridden, that kind of stuff.
I don't know what I saw that made me think of that. That was a little fear when she lit a cigarette. And I'm like, oh, this is going to get really bad.
I was only afraid of the sparks, like the electricity, like the water on that with the outlets.
Oh,
and stuff.
Yeah. And that's
what I was scared of. Yeah.
What's happening here?
We get to one of the iconic scenes that I wouldn't have remembered at all before this viewing, though. And this just might be me from like an artsiness perspective, but we've got the toilet is spewing up stuff because of where the water table is. It's spitting out sewage, clearly. And daughter is like sitting on top of it trying to smoke a cigarette. At the same time, old housekeeper is throwing up into a toilet in the bunker of this basement that's way underground. It was the two toilet scenes at the same time. One is spitting up and one she's throwing up into. And I don't totally understand it, but I liked it. I liked it a lot.
Yeah, the visual that your brain
keeps
is
cutting
just
back and forth.
Connecting. Mm-hmm. Yeah. I hated that scene, all of those scenes with the old housekeeper. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Because at first I'm like, why is the husband freaking out? And I'm like, well, I understand why he's freaking out. He's tied up. He's trying to get loose. Yeah. But he almost seems like borderline panicking. And I'm like, stop panicking. Why are you panicking? Which is ridiculous. Because if I were in that situation, I don't know that I wouldn't be panicking.
You'd be sobbing. Yeah.
But the wife is incredible. She's trying to come over and get him untied or whatever. Yeah. And she's talking the whole time, which I appreciated. And she's dizzy. Yep. She goes and throws up. She can't see him anymore. She tells him who kicked her down the stairs.
Yep.
And that she says, I have a concussion.
And she says her name repeatedly to get that burned into his crazy brain.
Yes. And then, like, I assumed she died because she says, I can't see you.
Yeah. I'm a little unclear as to how, because didn't the dad gag her too after he dragged her behind the bookshelf? I thought she had been to some extent bound and gagged.
I think she was gagged, but
just not as thoroughly.
Probably not, because he was rushing to get out.
Yeah. And then later, her husband, when the boy goes down, with the rock to try to, like, I don't know, kill him or whatever he's planning on doing.
Yeah.
Well, I guess there's some stuff that we're skipping over, so I guess we'll get back to that. I do want to talk first about, we start really ratcheting up the tension for me when Madam is just texting all of her servants, oh, hey, I need you to come in on a Sunday for this garden party. It's just an impromptu.
Yes.
The driver's got to get here. And, of course, we got to get the art tutor.
No gifts.
And it's just, she has such presumption that everyone is available and everyone, like, all of these people, like, well, I pay you. Of course you're going to come.
Yeah.
And they just had the worst nights of their lives by so much.
I feel
with
like
the terror, and then also their homes got destroyed. Their home got destroyed.
Yeah, completely destroyed. I feel like the tone was different for the brother and sister, though, because the daughter texted the boy tutor and was like, Mom said we should invite you.
Yeah. Well, because she had requested that he get invited.
Yeah, I feel like the tone was a little different. I feel like for the housekeeper and the driver, it was like, I need you to come in so you can drive me around and pack up all my groceries.
Especially driver, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, and they're having okay, so I'm just going to read my whole note. Okay. This back act is about how the rich are oblivious to the suffering of those around them. Madam just expecting everyone to come in and pay them overtime, not realizing they've had the most traumatic night of their lives. But then when the dad is going and checking on Da Song in the teepee that they have set up in the yard, and the mom is hauling these huge tables from downstairs up the stairs outside, setting them up, clearly sweating, and he goes, quiet, he's sleeping. And I was like, are you kidding me, dude?
Yeah. Infuriating.
You can tell at that point that the Kim family are all individually reaching these boiling points.
They're over it.
Yeah.
Especially the mom and the dad.
Yeah. Do we need to have another conversation about Dahai being 16 and her relationship with her tutors? Or have we already covered that?
I feel like we covered it when she was
with the, like, what's wrong?
Yeah. Just stay up here with me. Although what I will say is, now here's where you see the son getting a little introspective, maybe. Do I belong here?
Oh, he keeps asking her, because when they were getting drunk, he said to his sister, you fit in, you belong here. You just looked like it was right when you were taking that bath.
And she did.
So he's thinking about it. Mm-hmm.
She did.
She's pretty.
Very, but I mean, she, like, carried herself in a way that you didn't see the difference. And I know that sounds crazy, but even if you just think about the housekeeper, the mom, and how she's carrying those tables and she's setting them up all by herself, that is hard work, and it does affect your body in a particular way. And you carry that stress. You carry manual labor, and you carry the stress of poverty, for lack of a better term.
Clock's ticking down too. Yeah. You got to have this done by a certain time. You've got them on your back. Yeah.
You carry yourself differently.
Then I will never forget this scene probably for the rest of my life when they're taught, when Mr. Park and Mr. Kim are wearing their headdresses with their tiny tomahawks crouched behind the shrubs. And he's like, oh, isn't this so cute? We're going to do this. And he's going to come out and save her. And we're going to attack her. And Mr. Kim is so tired. And he's been listening to Madam on the phone at the grocery store, just go, like all this stuff. And he's so tired, and he says something. He does the thing again where he's like, oh, well, I mean, you love her, so, like, that's why you're doing it. And Mr. Park stops and he looks at him and he says, Mr. Kim, you're getting paid extra. Think of this as part of your work. Okay. I was like, this is a man that is used to writing a check and having what he wants done.
Yeah. Because
you can't talk to someone that way and expect them to respect you going forward.
Yeah.
It's just wild. I couldn't believe it.
We get the daughter saying, has anybody been down there to talk to them?
Mm-hmm. We get a little bit of that. She's about to go down with the big meatball.
Yeah.
But she gets caught by Madam and has to go outside instead. And she has to do the cake and all that stuff. So son does go down. and he drops the rock.
He goes down with, I felt, very noticeably different intentions than the daughter.
Yes. Yeah. I was like, why is he carrying the big rock to the double basement?
Yeah.
Why you only have that to carry down because you're gonna kill them to wrap up loose ends. Right? It's the only reason.
Yeah.
And it's so metaphorical. The rock is so metaphorical, right?
It's crazy.
And then I guess I don't understand how crazy husband got free of his bonds and was able to make like that noose thing that he was going to put around him.
I think she helped him get kind of free, but not all the way. And I'm sure just over the night he worked it out.
I guess so. I guess just with time. Yeah.
Yeah. He was moving a lot. Clear. And I feel like she did get it started.
Mm-hmm. Well, she ripped it with her mouth, I think.
Yeah. So I think that was close.
Mm-hmm. And then, I mean, we obviously get to sort of the climax here where they have a fight in the basement where he chokes him. The son gets back up to like the wine cellar part of the basement and he just slams him in the head with that rock.
I didn't watch that part.
Twice, Jess.
I know, I didn't watch it.
And he's down.
And I asked Jeremy, I'm like, did it hit his head? Did they show it hitting his head?
It like, you see it like clip the back of his head. You don't see like a big chunk taken out or anything like that, but you do see the blood on the floor.
Yeah. I just could not watch it. Also, I was very annoyed that the boy didn't turn around and pick up the string that was dangling behind him because all I could think is you're running up those stairs and all he has to do is reach that little hook
or he gets caught on something.
You're done.
Yeah. That was frustrating. And then at this point, the crazy husband is just full on crazy. He's got all this stuff all over his face from the fight.
Blood from pounding his head against the light thing.
Oh, because he was sending a message
so aggressively, which I'm like, ow.
Yeah. Oh, well, at this point, he's just full on crazy. Like he's having like a psychotic break.
Yes.
He pulls the knife out. Because
he's been trapped with his wife who he literally watched die and could not do anything about it.
Right. It's understandable.
Yeah.
It's understandable. He pulls the knife out and then just walks outside and like kind of looks around and sees some people and then just walks forward and stabs her. Not even like a member of the Park family. Like he just stabs sister.
Yeah.
Which I thought was, he's crazy at that point.
Which I was like, he knew that it was the mom and he didn't look for her.
Right.
But I'm also like, I don't think he cares specifically who he's stabbing as long as somebody's going down.
He just saw a big group of people and then one isolated person.
Yes.
And just went for, I think that was just a beacon on the hill that he went for.
And where do you think he stabbed her? Because it sort of looked like it was in the shoulder and then it sort of looked like it might have been over the heart.
I think it was kind of just above the heart. It was bleeding a lot.
Yeah.
And then we get into my next question. She's on the ground. Her dad is trying to stop the bleeding. And Mr. Park is like, we got to go to the hospital. Let's go. Walk away from that girl that's bleeding out in front of you.
Right.
Which is crazy. Throw me the keys. The keys get knocked down. So what I'm wondering is, who do you think is to blame here? Like, who do we blame or do we blame no one? Because it's understandable that Mr. Park wants the car keys to save his son. Yes. The same thing that the dad wants to with his daughter's wound. So I think they're both on fair footing right there. They don't know. Mr. Park doesn't know that's his daughter, but I don't blame either of them.
Super simple solution. Bring her. Let's go to the hospital.
Right. Two people going to the hospital.
Yeah. And I should
two
rephrase.
Sets of car keys.
I don't want to say simple solution because these are high medical conditions happening.
Do we not have a 911?
Well, the mom explains that they couldn't wait for the ambulance. Like she says
because of the 15-minute rule.
Yeah.
Yeah, I guess so.
But honestly, and I don't know much about this, so, feel free to educate me, but she said that he had a seizure.
Like a trauma-induced seizure.
Okay, a trauma-induced seizure, which I'm not familiar with. I thought
I'm not.
Seizure was, I didn't know that it could be trauma-induced.
Yeah.
I thought it was something real. Like that was a medical condition, underlying medical condition that surfaced because of something. So I was like, why don't they have
an EpiPen or something for him?
Like more answers than just we have to go to the hospital.
Yeah,
or
I don't
maybe
know.
they did and they just didn't tell us because it's not super necessary.
I don't know anything about seizures like that. It doesn't seem out of their own possibility to me that if someone's under enough stress that a super traumatic event could cause them to have that kind of reaction. If they have a weak heart or maybe he does have underlying epileptic condition or something.
Yeah.
But it probably would have to be in conjunction with something else.
Yeah.
But yeah, I don't know a lot about that. But I guess I'm trying to square the fact that crazy husband with a knife is actively rolling around on the ground, like battling with housekeeper mom.
Yeah.
And he's just like, give me the keys. Let's go. Someone's bleeding out here. Like Mr. Park is just
one track
blinders
mind.
on, one track mind. Yeah.
Which I don't know if that's realistic or not.
It might be. I mean, it's like fight or flight. But then to openly hold your nose with two fingers.
That is not realistic.
That's
no
not
way.
realistic.
No.
That's insane. I know some rich people. Like I've known people that are very well off. That's insane.
I think in that instance, even if there's a funky BO smell coming from that guy, you're grabbing those keys. You're not going to be next to him that long.
Yeah.
You're grabbing those keys and you are running to the car.
Well, how often do you see someone reach up and pinch their nose so they don't smell something? It's not something you do a lot.
No.
Unless you're trying to be rude.
The only time I can think of, honestly, that I see people hold their nose is when they're about ready to eat something that
really?
They don't want to eat or that's gross.
I was going to say when they jump into a pool, but that's a different thing.
That is a different thing. I do see people hold their nose when they jump into a pool. But do you know what I mean? When you're like,
yes,
okay, I just have to eat this. I'm going to plug my nose, hold my breath.
It's like a little kid thing.
Yeah.
I can't picture an adult doing it, really. So then how shocked were you that the brother survived?
Incredibly. And the tone of the movie changes immediately.
Yeah. I mean, it's like the last 15 minutes.
Okay. But, so not the whole, not the tone of the movie, but there's a significant change into the end of the movie.
Because we're in like narrator mode and he's doing the giggling.
I honestly didn't even know who was talking.
Yeah. I think it was him. I think it was brother.
Yeah. Well, it was once I got into it. I'm like, okay, that's who it is. But I had no clue who was talking.
Yeah.
And then we find out they do get charged with fraud and some other things. So maybe.
Which with what evidence? Like, what are we being convicted of here? They only got probation.
Well, that's weird. Okay, actually, before
falsifying credentials? Is that really like we're going to court for that? Like, what's happening?
Also, are Miranda rights a thing in Korea?
I'm going to defer to the. I'm going to
translation.
Defer to the translation and the. I mean, I'm sure it's not the name Miranda, but maybe they took it. I don't know. That's from like the 80s in the United States. They could have redone some of their judicial stuff since then.
I just remember making a note of that and thinking that was weird.
Not like the broad concept, but like calling them Miranda rights is what you're saying.
Well, even the broad concept, because I don't know what the judicial system looks like in Korea.
I'm just going suspension of disbelief. It's a very first world country with very modern judicial system. It doesn't surprise me that there's some sort of we have to read your rights because of illegal so-and-so. So
I did think it was funny that he's like, do I have to do it again? The detective's asking the doctor.
The detective who doesn't look like a detective and the doctor who doesn't look like a doctor. Yeah.
Okay, so they get probation. So so many things here. They didn't find anybody in the basement. They didn't know there was a basement.
They don't know about the double basement.
They don't. Which, if the mom and the son didn't know where the dad went, which we don't really get to that until a little bit later, but I'm just saying they're not required to do any kind of explanation about what they were doing there and why they were there or anything.
Well, son is not really in a fit mental state to do that during these proceedings, but mom, I mean, they're good liars, I guess. I don't know. I guess
the only thing people saw her do was attack the man that stabbed her daughter.
Yeah. So that's my thing is how did this all come out exactly? They found out that they were in a relationship. they had a relationship between them, right? I mean, okay, that's a mom and daughter, and this was their credentials were sort of falsified. I guess it's not really clear to me how exactly that came out. And it could just be as simple as brother was lying bleeding out on the floor, and they looked in his pocket and saw his ID, and they saw it was a different name, and they had an address, and they started putting those things together. I don't know.
Maybe. We also don't see the tutor girl find him. Wait. I don't think
picks him up. She picks him up. The girl, the 16-year-old puts him on her back.
Which
that's how he got to the hospital.
I recognize that, but we don't see her find him laying on the floor.
Yeah.
Which I just think is like this very weird thing I would have been interested to see.
Yeah.
Like
I think that's just like there's so much going on situation.
Yeah.
That something you're not just going to be able to, it's just boom, boom, boom. Here's this next crazy thing that's happening.
It was very pointed that the dad noted that he was alive, ? On the girl's back.
Did he note it?
He found, we're seeing him scan the crowd, and he sees his son.
Oh, that dad. Yes. Mm-hmm. It's too bad, and it's almost a bit unrealistic. Did he really not have his phone on him when he went down to that basement?
Oh, I don't know. That's a very interesting point.
Yeah. I mean, he obviously didn't, because he didn't contact the family or anything. He just did the Morse code stuff.
How about, did the little boy die?
Unclear.
They don't say anything about that.
Mm-hmm.
They say Mr. Park died.
They did?
Mm-hmm.
From the one stab? I mean, he must have gotten him in the heart.
I feel like I'm feeling very confident that I heard him say that he died.
It's entirely possible. Here's my second to last question for you, Jess. If we break this film down into 3 acts, right? Initial heist for going from poor family to conning the rich family to letting them work for them. You've got act 2, which is finding out about all of this twist stuff, about finding out about the second family in the double basement. And then act 3 is climax with where it turns horror. We've got the fight, we've got the gore, and then we've got the denouement from that. Which of the 3 acts did you like best?
The first.
I have a guess. That's what I would have guessed. That's the part that's more clever.
It definitely
and
is,
written. Yeah. And the other ones aren't supposed to be clever. It's supposed to be just like, here's like this is reinforcing the message about class solidarity and warfare, and here's what's happening, and this is what it looks like when your back's against the wall and you're defensive and all that kind of stuff.
We didn't talk about how he discovered that the dad wrote him a letter, and then he writes his dad a letter, and we see him buy the house with his mom.
I'm thinking that is a projected secondary timeline. Because then after that scene, it cuts back to him reading the initial translated Morse code still in the basement apartment.
Yes, I agree 100%. But as I was watching it, I was like, what? How did he get the money to buy that home? Right. Like, what did he do?
So now all of a sudden it's as easy as like, I'm just going to make a bunch of money. Yeah. Like, why wasn't that your plan from step 1? Yeah.
Also, although I guess they were on probation only. So I'm like, I understand that it's hard for people that have been convicted of crimes, like that can be tricky to just get loans, get money to buy this home.
Yeah, 100%. It's the letter that dad is reading to him, going through Morse code would take so long.
I even told Jeremy, I'm like, I don't understand where you know where to start and stop in Morse code.
Right. You just start going.
And then you just
like letter to letter even.
Right.
I don't get it. I don't know. I don't understand it. You just pause, ... dash, dash. I don't know.
It's 3 things. So every 3 things the letter changes, but you don't know when you start. So if you catch the second dot or dash, it could throw the entire thing off.
I assume that there is a slight pause between the end of one letter and the beginning of the next. But I wasn't a Cub Scout. I don't know. Or a scout. Any kind of scout.
I mean, I think there is, but I wonder what the trick really is. Like,
yeah.
Anyways.
I mean, it's like speaking another language. Like you get good at it and you can kind of tell, I assume. Or at a certain point, if that first letter doesn't make sense, then
you just shift.
Yeah.
And we didn't see the mom at the end when he found the letter and all of that, which I thought he would. I thought he was running home to tell her he's alive.
We hear her say, "Oh, is that you? You're home," and that's it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which makes me feel sad because there goes their team.
Oh yeah. Well, without daughter, the team was in a rough spot. Without sister.
Yeah.
So I love this movie. It's one of my 7 favorite movies of all time, probably. I love the message. I'm all about understanding the difficulties of getting out of poverty. It's something a lot of people take for granted. Just get a job. Okay, there's a million steps in between here and there. And they say a couple times in Korea at that time, he's like, a security guard position comes open and 500 college graduates apply to it.
Yeah.
Because, the education system is going crazy. It's cheaper to go to college. And so people are getting the educations. They're not coming back to jobs they're going to pay for them.
Yep.
So I'm here for all of the messages. And I think it's cool. I think it's well written. I think it's beautifully shot. I think it's artistic in a way that's interesting to me and it's thought provoking. I really, really like it. Is this something that is it too nerve wracking for you to watch again?
Yeah, I won't watch it again, but I would recommend it.
Okay. It's a strong recommendation to watch one time.
Yeah.
But not put in a rotation.
I won't watch it again because I do agree with everything you said about like the class differences and just go get a job. Like it's not that easy. And they explain why it's not that easy. And these struggles are real. Yeah. And it might be slightly exaggerated in certain areas.
Yeah.
But also not so much.
Right.
And even in America, now we're not sitting on top of each other for the most part, but like these are similar struggles. Like these struggles don't go away just because of where you live. They look a little different, but the root.
Yeah, rural poverty is different than urban poverty in some different ways. Yeah.
But it's still there. And so I think there's a very good take on like just seeing how somebody else lives and like it can help your perspective. I think it's a really good movie in that way. And I think I don't know, I really liked it outside of the whole like second part of the movie making me feel super anxious.
Yeah.
It was really good.
But like you get why they chose to do that.
Yes.
Like the director wouldn't be like, really, you were anxious? He was like, no, good. Like I wanted you to feel that way, and you just don't like feeling that way.
It totally fit with the movie. Yeah. And this is why I say like there are movies that are good movies that they're not my movie that I would watch again. I did just, when I Googled, did Mr. Park die? I did see that he does. He fatally stabs Mr. Park and runs away. And then the rest of this little blurb that's right there says, despite this shocking and violent ending, the director told /film that he didn't set out to make a violent movie. And I felt like that whole bit was really violent. And I just wonder if that's me and my sensitivity to it. Because I'll go watch the crazy spy movies with all of the guns and the fighting. Yeah. But this was violent in a very different way that I'm having trouble reconciling my.
It's intense. It's intensely. It's not intensely anything. It's intensely personal, right? The relationships are also personal, and the violence that's done is personal, and it's by average Joe Schmo people. But in what ways is it intensely violent? A guy tosses a rock twice, and then there are like 3 individual like stabbings, and there's blood on people's faces, and it's very personal. But yeah, compared to like any movie with swords in it, like any kind of samurai slashing, like quantity of blood, like any of that kind of stuff.
I don't know enough about myself in this sense of why it was so crazy. Particularly the old housekeeper is the one who gets all of the worst, I think, outside of the head smashing. Because when she's trying to open the door in the first place, she falls off the weird wall thing. And I'm like, that hurt. She was already beat up. She gets pushed down the stairs. Like, she really gets battered.
An old person. Yeah.
In a lot.
It's not exactly like a henchman,
times.
A James Bond villain henchman or something. Yeah.
Yeah.
I wonder if it's kind of like capitalism is violence, like one of those like 1,000-foot view types of things that he's going for. It could be. This is, it's more, I guess more than that. It's like the thing where you take a topic and like, okay, let's play it out. Okay, then this would happen, and this would happen. It's like, this is the eventual end game of these policies and like the way our society's set up. And yeah, it's some extreme examples, but
yeah, but
very rarely are you watching this and you're like, that could never happen that way. That's totally unrealistic.
I don't know how realistic it is to have an underground bunker that nobody knows about.
If you're not in on the blueprints, and the guy designed his own house, didn't tell them, he didn't tell the people, his realtors or whatever, and didn't tell the next owners. I don't know. I mean, it's maybe not like an everyday thing, but I don't think it didn't take me out of like, that could never happen.
Oh, well, for sure. But I just mean like, that's one of those areas where I'm like,
yeah,
that might be a little weird, but the rest of
it's a unique case. Yeah.
As far as like a family conning their way into service jobs.
None of it's high tech.
I could buy that, I think.
Mm-hmm. And good for them.
The other thing is, there's a lot to be said about willing ignorance from the side of the Park family.
Yeah.
And how
absolutely
it had devastating effects on their family.
Mm-hmm. If you disagree with our interpretation of some of the themes of that was about to be insane to me. Bong Joon-ho's 2019 film Parasite. If you have feelings about your favorite act, about how nerve-wracking it's supposed to be, we would love to hear from you. Please contact us on various social media sites at FlabberPod. Call us at 1-765-MAGIC.
No, call us at 240-MOVIE-76.
240-MOVIE-76. We'd love to hear from you. Give us a suggestion on a movie that you just can't believe we haven't seen. I am Rogge saying goodbye.
Bye.